check, and that will certainly help in the fight. But this is a long-playing incident. I mean, these people have evacuated and taken what they can from their homes, very large homes. What was that again?
We have an officer from the CHP who is on the phone, and
okay.
I missed the name. Officer Lund,
okay.
joining us now on the phone, CHP. Officer Lund, this is so impactful for people and their property, but it is also affecting people not directly associated with the fire, but their commute. Can you tell us what what is the situation in the 405 and also the 101 and the 10?
So right now, we really don't know when we're going to be able to open up the 405. It is going to be closed from the 10 to the 101. And we just ask people to be patient. If you're stuck in traffic, please listen to, your radio to figure out what those closures are, what ramps are open. Please keep your seatbelts on, and remember to move over to the right to allow emergency vehicles to pass so we can get them quickly to these areas.
Now, Officer Lund, we had heard that they were planning on shutting down the 405 southbound. That has not happened. Is that still a plan, or have they switched off of that?
From the information that I have in front of me, it does look like they are going to be doing that. Obviously, it depends on the fire and what's needed from the fire department.
So you will basically close it if you're asked right now. The fire department doesn't feel as if the southbound side necessarily needs to close. Is that so? It's pretty much what they need, and you're the muscle, so to speak.
It's going to come from both the CHP and the fire department. A lot of it has to do with visibility, as well as how close those flames are to the freeway. Obviously, we don't want vehicles traveling through if those flames have a chance of, coming so close to the freeway that it could endanger the drivers.
Now, Officer Lund, what challenges do we face now with traffic in Los Angeles, and particularly for your agency?
You know what? A lot of it is if we can get help from the public. We understand it's frustrating, and you might only know a specific way to get to work. If you can, maybe pull over, contact your job, see if you can wait by, maybe grab some coffee, wait for this to clear, or just try to find an alternate route using surface streets. But please, please, please avoid the freeways. If you can, go to Sigler. It's SIGALERT online, and you can see alternate routes.
Okay. Officer Lund, thank you very much. Officer Lund of the CHP letting us know what's going on as far as the freeways. Scott Reif had said something earlier. Everybody remembers Carmageddon when people were trying to get over the 405 and we warned everybody to get away. He was pointing out that on the 101 in spots, it's actually somewhat clear west of the incident because everybody knows that it has happened. He was also saying, though, when you're heading west from the valley and going that way, it's a parking lot.
Yeah.
So we hope the word gets out.
Right. It's going to take some extra time, extra thought, and planning in driving today to try to sit down and figure what routes you're going to take. But as Officer Lund suggested, it's best to avoid the freeways, especially in that area.
I think it's probably best to call work and say home. This is the kind of incident when you take, because if you think about it, you're taking away the 10 and the 101. At some point, this just becomes undoable.
So are you saying this is the type of incident where you can get off of work properly?
I think you should make a phone call. A lot of schools, LAUSD has closed 54 schools. Santa Monica Unified School District is closing schools as well. And you can imagine private schools also closing. We may not have word of them. I do know Notre Dame and Sherman Oaks was already closed. And that's the thing to remember. A lot of these schools were closed already due to air quality from the 4 fires we've been covering for the past 24 to 48 hours. Now you add this one, which is also going to affect air quality, but primarily this one is affecting how people get around at Los Angeles.
All right, 8:11 right now. Let's go back out to Brandy. Hit on the ground there. Brandy, what can you tell us?
Philip and Leslie, we're still in the Waldman's backyard. Thanks again to them for letting us in here, but they are terrified when they saw this fire. It's been moving across towards the east here, and you can see it is making its way very quickly over the last maybe hour or so in the distance there. Here comes another helicopter that's about to make a drop, and also a little bit towards to the right of where the darker smoke is. We've seen a couple of flare-ups, and fire crews are there on the ground trying to stop that spread from coming this direction. One big water drop right there. The Waldmans are under mandatory evacuations right now, along with this entire neighborhood over here. I did see one other family maybe about 20 minutes ago packing up their bags and getting out as well. But this is a first for them. I mean, they've been watching all the wildfire coverage, and now they're terrified because this fire is moving so quickly. The winds in this area have picked up significantly right now. They're maybe steady at 5 miles an hour, but we've seen gusts probably up to 15 to 20 at times, really whipping these flames up. And as I told you earlier, we also did see that super scooper drop, just one plane drop, and that was it. The rest of the drops that we've been seeing in this area have been helicopters left and right. In the distance of that black smoke, we used to see that kind of gathering of trees that we keep showing from different vantage points, from Air 7 HD and from other vantage points, but now that is almost completely out of the picture for us on this northern side of the fire. And unfortunately, in the distance, sometimes we're seeing those large flames get licked up by the winds, and it appears at times to be heading in this direction, but primarily heading east right now. Just unfortunate, Philip and Leslie, as we watch it from the Waldman's backyard, and so many other families are watching this, just hoping it doesn't come this direction.
Okay, we'll continue to watch. Brandy, thank you. Want to go back to Josh Haskell now. He has somebody with LAPD. Hopefully can give us a little more guidance as far as evacuations, closures, all manner of elements. He's at the command center. Josh?
That's correct, Philip. I'm here with Josh Rubenstein, PIO with LAPD. Update us a little bit on the evacuations and the presence that you guys have here.
Yeah, well, a large presence. We got a lot of officers on hand right now to evacuate neighborhoods here on the east side of the 405 freeway. So we're talking about an area that encompasses Mulholland, down, that's the northern edge. We've got the 405 here on the western edge, and then Roscommare on the eastern edge, Sunset here on the southern edge of that evacuation area. That's a mandatory evacuation area. Our officers are going up into the neighborhoods and making sure everybody gets out.
And what are your officers encountering so far? Are people leaving?
So far everybody is complying right now. It's an early morning for many, and they were awakened by the flames that were popping up here early this morning. On the western side of the freeway, now we're talking about the Brentwood side, and this encompasses an area from Mulholland up to the north, Sunset here down to the south, Mandeville Canyon over to the west, and the 405 here to the east. That's an area we're telling people be prepared to go, because we are expecting those winds to pick up again tonight, and should the fire jump the 405 freeway, we would need everybody to get out there as well.
And you don't have any specific numbers for us of how many homes in Bel Air?
No, I mean, anybody that drives through this area and knows the west side like this, incredibly densely populated here right along the 405 freeway on the Bel Air side and the Brentwood side, an area that we try to get a handle on very quickly when any kind of fire pops up. This one, an extensive fire, and as I was coming in this morning, when I was popping over here at 5:30 in the morning, you could just see the hillside glowing, one of the bigger fires I've seen in the area here. So.
And Josh, before we let you go, I'm seeing a number of your patrol cars leave right now. Tell us kind of what goes on when they go through these neighborhoods. Are they going door to door? Are they just on the loudspeaker? What are neighbors encountering in these specific area of Bel Air?
Yeah, what they're going to do is they're going to go up into these neighborhoods. They're going to go on the loudspeaker. They go with an accompanying fire folks as well to help them should we get into a situation where we need to get out. And we try to get the word out to the neighborhoods that they need to get out of there. Yesterday at the Creek Fire, we actually did some door knocking in some homes that we knew that people had that limited mobility to try and get them out. So it's a combination of door knocks and going on the loudspeaker and really getting the word out to get out of the area because it's dangerous.
And Philip and Leslie, any questions while I have the PIO here with the LAPD?
Actually, yeah, Josh, I've had a couple of people reach out wondering about cause. I know that will be arson investigation and all, but I don't know if maybe Josh has any kind of indication. It was right by the freeway, so maybe it was car related, but do they have any indication as to what started this?
Yeah, Josh, Philip Palmer, our anchor, wants to know about cause. I know it's early for that, but is there any indication of how this fire started?
No, not yet. Really early right now to get that kind of information. I can tell you that it popped up so quickly and moving so fast that our primary responsibility right now is to be sure the public is safe and protect those structures.
And we heard about the possibility of another briefing, 10 a.m. with Mayor Garcetti. Can you tell us anything about that?
Yeah, we are expecting the mayor to be here. The Chief Beck will be here as well for a briefing at about 10 o'clock. I know that representatives from council districts are here as well. So we'll have a better update of acreage and the extent of this in a bit.
And we know this is something the CHP is handling, but we were talking about this earlier. The 405 South is still moving.
Yeah.
Anything you can tell us about that? Any plans to close it?
Right now, as far as road closures and freeway closures, it really is a fluid experience here because we want to keep traffic moving as much as possible. In some cases, though, we do have to shut the freeway down. CHP shut the freeway down on the north side. As you can see, we may take up a lane here on the HOV lane as the day moves on, depending on how we get our equipment in. They may, I can see now they've shut the exit here at Sunset as well. So it's going to be fluid, and I would just say, everybody, bring your patients along if you have any kind of commuting today. On this side, over in the valley, Ventura County, it is just a mess everywhere.
So that's the scene here at the command post. We are on the overpass for the 405 freeway, which divides Bel Air and Brentwood. Fire concentrated in the Bel Air neighborhood right now. We'll have much more. We'll send it back to you guys.
Okay. Josh, thank you very much for that. We see a very active firefight on the right side of the screen. We saw two tanker Phos-Chek drops. We also saw some crane drops, and we saw a big flare-up right in the middle of the screen with a lot of black smoke and a very active flame. It appears as though something, possibly a house, is on fire.
Well, certainly we hope not. But yeah, it's interesting how they move their fight for the air operations around. We saw that Phos-Chek. You know that's going to slow the fight. But this is, I feel like this is a different area that we're looking at right there. It does, sometimes they're going to make their drops to protect the structure. They'll let it burn in another area, and then you'll see that black smoke pop up because this is an area that they haven't targeted right now. I don't see a lot of ground personnel in that particular spot. That does not mean, I am not saying that they're not there. I just don't see them right there. It seems somewhat open, almost as if this was a construction area. Remember, we mentioned Carmageddon. There were a lot of areas that were cleared out and emptied out so that they could expand the freeway there. But look at that shot on the left as that really begins to blow up. Again, it's shot from a distance. With Brandy. Leslie Lopez is here as well. So as we continue to watch these two shots, Leslie's going to come in, and we've had, if you want to say a break, we've had a bit of a break in the fight on this particular fire due to the winds today as opposed to yesterday.
Yeah, that's correct. And you know what I'm noticing on the screen to the right, you'll notice that the smoke plume is rising, and that was much different in comparison to yesterday when that smoke plume was lying flat because of how gusty the winds were. Now, what you're noticing on the left hand of your screen is terrain, and so this is truly a terrain-driven fire versus what we saw yesterday where it was a wind-driven fire. We have medium to heavy brush through this area, so plenty of accelerants, and we also have some very narrow access for firefighters, so this is making the firefight very difficult. Now, as far as the wind direction, I want to let you know where this fire is headed, just in case you are in the line, in the path. We are looking at the fire to be moving out of the northeast down to the southwest. So if you're into the southwestern corridor of where these flames are, then, you know, firefighters are probably, and police officers, going to try to ask you to evacuate at some point. Wind speeds, though, they're not a big factor in this. We're talking about only 10 to 15 mile per hour sustained winds. Every once in a while, we'll have a gust of about 20 miles per hour. But one of the contributing factors to making this also tough, yes, we have the terrain, but also the very low humidity. The humidity is only at 9%, so it's very dry. This is a typical Santa Ana pattern that we're in. But the Santa Ana concerns are still going to remain for us later today. We have a big burst of winds that are expected late tonight. So again, we're going to get right back to the velocity we were at yesterday morning, where we're talking about ferocious Super Santa Ana winds coming through the area. We had hurricane force winds at times, and so that does return for us tonight for about 11 o'clock this evening, all the way through 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. So again, that big burst of wind is a big concern if they don't get a handle on this fire between now and about 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock tonight is when they start picking up. 11 o'clock is when they really start getting going. This is a cool Santa Ana, so I just want to make the clarification that we have hot Santa Anas. We also have very cool Santa Anas. So same type of mechanics. We have very strong gusty winds coming out of the Great Basin that roll right through our canyons and our passes. This one, whenever we have a cool Santa Ana, you can count on stronger winds. And so this is exactly what we're seeing here in the month of December. That's typical for December, typical of January. But most of our Santa Ana conditions last all the way through April. So this isn't atypical, but what is atypical is that we don't have the rain. And typically we have nice showers that come on through. It helps with our fuel moisture content. We don't have such dry vegetation. In this case, we had a very big winter season last year. Now we have a very dry winter season. So it's just making for a tough firefight in this terrain-driven fire versus the wind-driven fire that we saw yesterday.
All right, Les, thanks very much for that. And as we are looking at this firefight continue, we don't have any confirmation that any homes have burned, but we did visibly see 2 homes burn. You are looking at the flames as they are lapping up the hillside. They're thick, thick smoke. We did see the Foscheck as it had been laid down along the ridge side. And we do know that the President Trump, has commented on this. He has tweeted about the fires here in California. We can bring that up if we have it. He has said, "Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone in the path of California's wildfires. I encourage everyone to heed the advice and orders of local and state officials. Thank you to all first responders for your incredible work." That coming from President Donald Trump this morning.
Let me show you again from Air 7 real quick, if we're going back to that shot, because you mentioned the Foscheck drop right on the ridge. I believe we're going to go to it. Okay. One of the things I've noticed, and hold on for the camera shot. You see the Foscheck. They've really made a targeted effort on this ridge, and I think here's why. If you pan to the left and downhill, please, you can see that they do not want it getting here, because keep going downhill, you'll see a lot of vegetation growth there, but there are homes just below, not there.
To the left.
To the left, if we can hear, go down and to the left, and now come back down. Okay, it's kind of difficult to communicate, but we want to go down into that valley, because they've dropped that Foscheck up top. Okay, well, there's Christine. It's somewhat difficult sometimes to talk to the Air 7 HD folks. Once Scott Reif gets back above it, we'll be able to ask him. Christina, we'll go to you. But again, we're focusing on that ridge. We saw that ridge. Now you've got, we can't see it. We can see it in studio. There are a lot of homes, Christina, at risk if it crests that ridge and starts heading down. You've been watching a lot of evacuations.
You know what, Philip? We were actually up on Cassiano Drive just a little while ago, right across the street from where the homes were burning, so we got to see it firsthand. Unfortunately, our signal wouldn't transmit, so we couldn't show you that picture. But I can tell you what we saw. The smoke was so thick up there that we couldn't even see the flames burning through, just barely through the homes. We saw firefighters, as Frank shows you another angle of the firefighters coming in, you're speaking of with the Foscheck and doing the drops. But what's that? So just to follow up, we were seeing firefighters actually on people's balconies with garden hoses, just trying to drench the vegetation below. So when you were talking about the vegetation below, you're absolutely right. There was quite a bit of it. We have another helicopter coming up right here. The area's just been inundated with them. Just showing you how aggressively they are fighting this fire and how stubborn it has been, that they are really attacking it hard. And those flames still managing to fight their way through all the brush and the vegetation. We saw so many people evacuating from Cassiano Drive. Their cars just filled to the brim with as much stuff as it could pack up. But earlier we were on Moraga Drive, which is just one over. We'll take you over this way, show you as much as we can. I know our vantage point isn't so great, but you can see how thick the smoke is. Now, around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, that street was just a mass exodus of people, all the residents packing up as much as they could coming down. We were just up there. It's a complete ghost town up there. I mean, you can barely find anybody. It looks like everybody has heeded the warnings and evacuated. And, you know, after watching all the fires yesterday, people that we spoke to said that they are very cognizant of how fast things can change and how real the danger is. And, you know, to lose your house is devastating, but certainly you just want to make sure that your family's safe, your animals are safe. And luckily they've been given a chance to get out as much as they can, and that's what they're doing. But yeah, a very intense situation up on Cassiano Drive. Where we are, we're all the way down. We're just off of the 405 freeway. The smoke's still so thick. Everybody around here's got their masks on. Just a little while ago, it was raining down ash on us. So the wind's just really blowing. But that's pretty much the scene for you guys at where we are. We're just off of the 405 on Moraga, so I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
Okay, thanks, Christina. Thanks very much. As you were doing your live shot on the right-hand side of the screen, we see that they are taking an aggressive stand at the top of that ridge. We saw the Super Scooper for the first time drop Phos-Chek. You see a little patch, a small patch of flame there at the top of the ridge. Up to the left-hand side, you see the red where the Phos-Chek is. Let's check in with Scott Reif and Air 7 HD. Scott, they are really battering this fire and going at it very aggressively.
It is a battle, and it's one that they're having a hard time winning or getting the upper hand on. We have some sad information that we have to give you, and that is we understand there are several homes on Moraga that are on fire. That was a scanner tip that we got from LA City. That's not Moraga. We can't really see it. That right there is Linda Flora Drive, but all those homes are in jeopardy right now as the fire is burning up that ridge line. If we come out to the right for just a moment, Philip, you mentioned the Phos-Chek drop, and you're exactly right. They did it on top of this ridge line because they are worried about the fire coming up and over and then having another ridge line to defend further to the east. If they can stop it there, they don't have to worry going down the hill and back up towards an even larger grouping of homes. But as we tilt up, once again, this is Linda Flora Drive. All those homes, there is structure protection in place, but this fire is intense enough that it could overtake those firefighters and get into the attic and burn those homes. They're all in jeopardy. And then right down there in the middle of your screen almost, in all that smoke, is Moraga. We can't see that. We've been pushed way to the north and very high so that we don't interfere with aircrafts going into Burbank, some of their scheduled carriers, or air attack, or the aircraft's making the retardant drop, the tankers. So we're up pretty high. We can't see it, but unfortunately we hear that. That's pretty accurate information. I would also like to say the 405 southbound finally is shut down. It is closed. And I kind of have the feeling they were going to do it all the time. Right from the beginning, they planned on doing that. It just took a while to get the resources in place because of the traffic, because everything is so dispatched right now. Everybody's heading a different direction. With all these fires, boy, it is impossible to get the resources where you want them as quick as you'd like to get them there, even when it comes to closing a freeway. So the 405 South is shut down at the 101. It is amazingly light in the valley on the freeways, and that's because everybody's doing what they should do, and that's avoiding the drive and the commute. Like you mentioned, schools are out, a lot of them, and certainly because of that, a lot of folks are not going to work. But this is turning out to be a huge blaze in this area. You wouldn't call it huge in comparison to 55,000 acres like we saw up in Ventura, but to have it in this mountainous terrain where all of these homes are nestled up into the hillside is just so frightening. We could lose a lot of houses here today.
Well, Scott, we have two pictures that you can't see. One on our left, that is the closures of the freeway that you can see. You're not seeing the fire. You're seeing what the traffic is looking like right there. But, Scott, your shot, Air 7 HD, I'd like to revisit something you explained to us a little earlier, because I find it fascinating, the coordination that goes into this air attack. But when the Super Scoopers, when they come in, the fixed wing aircraft come in and drop that Phos-Chek, it's interesting. They need everyone out of the area, but then when they go to reload, that's when all of the helicopters come back in, and it is a tightly choreographed dance.
Yeah, it absolutely is. They work on it. You can imagine how dangerous it could be if someone makes a mistake. You know, it's happened before. You know, somebody doesn't get the word over the radio, hey, helicopters back out, and then a tanker comes in. The tanker doesn't have the ability to stop. A helicopter does. The tanker comes in at a high rate of speed. The helicopter comes in at a very slow pace, and because of that, it means you just can't mix the two at the same altitude. And then to make matters worse for us today, at least, air attack is above them, coordinating a dance, if you will, and then we are with coast approach, making sure we're not in the way of the aircrafts coming into Burbank that are coming down below us. Usually wouldn't be. They usually wouldn't be landing from south to north. They might be coming in directly from the east. They're not doing that today because of the direction of the wind. So it's just making things more complicated for us. We'd love to be down in the mix. You know, that's what we do. That's what really gets us going. We hate to see this, but if it's going to happen, we really love to cover it. We do believe that there are homes on fire that are ablaze right now on Moraga. We don't know how bad that is. As we mentioned earlier, sometimes when you have the resources in there, you can get in very quickly, and they can stop the fire from completely or destroying the home. We just don't have much information on that because we can't see through the smoke. But this looks like a fire that is going to take out several houses. We saw 2 on fire. Looks like they were destroyed. Now to hear about several. That was the word they used. Not 2 or 3, but several homes on Moraga that were ablaze.
That is unfortunate. Scott, even if they put the Phos-Chek down to stop the wall of flames right on the crest of that hillside, if it could, the embers, they still could travel over the ridge and onto the homes below.
Oh, no question. I mean, it certainly could happen, and there's a very good possibility that it will happen. You know, we're a long ways away from the tankers that are going to go back to San Bernardino. That's a long turnaround. I don't know approximately what it is, but it's a long turnaround. We had 4 S2s come in and make a drop, and they decided this is the ridge line they wanted to hold. But by the time they get back, if an ember hops over the hill, now you just have more of a front to try and defend. If they can drop the Phos-Chek right there and then forget about that ridge line, they love that because they can get more of their attention down towards Moraga and some of the homes that are burning. But this is all about the size. I mean, exponentially, when a fire gets too big in an area like this, the resources just get so spread out, you can't save the homes. So everything is so key initially to try and stop the fire from getting too big, and then pinpointing all of your resources into that one area. That's what they're trying to do, but unfortunately this is turning out to be a huge fire. Initially we thought maybe there was a chance they'd knock this down, or at least if not knock it down, try and get some sort of containment. We are not seeing that at all. Here comes the sky crane, and if it wasn't for these aircrafts and about a 5-minute turnaround or less to Stone Canyon Reservoir and back, we may have lost a couple of homes right there on that ridge line on Linda Flora, because they have been key from stopping that fire from spreading up the hill towards that house there and off to the left. Dozen more homes along the ridgeline. Keep going to the left, Kevin. Every now and then it clears and we can push in and see the houses. You see right there in the middle of your screen or on the top. That's what they're really worried about if the fire comes up and over that crest. See how those homes are just planted amongst all those big trees? Boy, a spot fire in there, and it's almost impossible to defend and to stop it from spreading to the houses.
Well, you know, Scott, you briefly touched on this a moment ago. When this thing first started, it was right next to the freeway. Just before 5 o'clock this morning, got word about a fire near the Getty Center. And initially, the biggest concern was this was going to mess up the commute. It was burning right by the 405. Yeah. And this thing just exploded away from the 405 and over that ridge right into the area near those homes.
Yeah, it certainly did. I want to give you a wide shot once again. You know, it's really interesting when you cover these fires because, you know, to come wide, Kevin, and show the whole thing, give you a little perspective, and give you also an idea where the smoke is headed towards the Palisades, how unhealthy the air is going to be out there. But once you get over these fires, and every now and then you'll see, boy, it looks like things are laying down. And right now it looks like it's laying down a bit because there's so much white smoke. But I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a fire and said, hey, it looks kind of encouraging. And then just 5 minutes later, it starts to erupt. So you never know what's going to happen. But it's just such a large blaze, and it's so hot and intense right now. It really is scary, the potential that this fire could have. And that loom up right there is frightening. I mean, we're looking down over tens of hundreds of thousands of homes further to the south, down over Santa Monica. To the right, Pacific Palisades. To the left is Bel Air and Westwood. I mean, there's just so many houses in the wake of this fire, and we are so fortunate we don't have the winds. If we did, I think we'd lose hundreds of homes down in there. That's what we saw in 93 in Laguna. 400 homes were lost because you just couldn't stop it, and those homes are nestled into the mountains similar to this. Then once, just a week later, we had the big fire in 93 in November, and that took out 268 homes. And this is an area similar to Malibu on some respects as far as the terrain is concerned and the way the homes are situated in between the heavy brush.
There's such a randomness in how it moves.
Yeah. But Scott, this is going to be would you pull out again and give me that wide shot again? The reason I ask is look at not the size of the fire so much, but the volume of smoke that is. I don't even. The last time you pulled out, you couldn't even really see the end of it to the right of your screen there. I mean, that is just amazing.
Yeah.
Look at that.
No, it's frightening. And, you know, you don't see it in this picture. I mean, you see this plume of smoke. Well, what we get is we get the smoke up here at 7,000 feet. We're getting some of the smoke and breathing that from the Creek Fire. And then you've got all that smoke further to the west from that Mammoth Fire, 55,000 acres, the Phillips Fire up in Ventura County. Boy, the unhealthy air out here is incredible. But, yeah, that's such a big plume of smoke, especially Pacific Palisades, and it's sort of blowing towards the west right now, and that will be up into Malibu, and then it's actually curling around back to the north towards like Calabasas and Woodland Hills. You really don't see it in that shot. We don't want to go that far to the right, but I want to push back into the blaze itself. Yeah. It looks a little better than it did 5 minutes ago. We just hope that that holds, but yeah, it's an incredible amount of smoke, such unhealthy air. Boy, if you have respiratory problems, you know, just don't get any exercise. Stay inside if you can, because this is the kind of thing that will really get you. And there you go. That's so effective. There is one of the S2s making the retardant drop, the Phos-Chek, and that really will make that fire just slow down when it hits that line.
That's interesting because we saw the Phos-Chek drop earlier to the left-hand side of the screen. It doesn't look like it slowed anything down, does it?
Well, I have a feeling if we didn't have that Phos-Chek line, we would have a much bigger wall of flame coming up and over that hill.
Yeah, and you know what, Scott? Right after we saw that Phos-Chek drop to the right of the screen, if you guys turned over, sadly, I saw a little fire that is on the other side of the ridge. As you keep going, and you'll keep going, and I know you've got to go get fuel. We're about to lose you. But there was another little edge just beyond here where you could see a couple of little spots that are starting to be bothersome right in that area. That just seems to be a little bit worrisome as far as anything getting over a ridge.
Yeah, that could be. That's got a ways to go before it goes back to the north and up towards those homes, because the fire is moving to the south. Pull out and just go to the south a little bit, Kevin, and you'll see. But they don't want to come up that ridge line right there, because there's a home, and if it crests over that ridge line and goes down to the left, go to the left a little bit further, boy, you don't even want to think about trying to protect that street. I believe that is Roscommare, if I'm not familiar. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it correct. Roscommare Road, which is the one on top of the hill, is Linda Flora Road. And so they don't want anything to do with that fire going further to the east. But one more time before we leave for fuel, we'll pull out and give you a wide shot. And once again, I know I've harped on this, and if you've been listening, you're tired of it. But my goodness, if we had winds, there'd be no chance that they could stop this fire. The wind is relatively calm, just a little breeze right now blowing basically from the east to the west, and that certainly is just so helpful.
Well, we're just getting word, Scott, and we'll let you go refuel. We're going to bring in Brandy Hibb, but I want to give folks an update. 2 C-130s have been activated by the states, by the governor to assist with the wildfires. Now, this note says in Southern California, so I'm not sure that the C-130s necessarily are going to this fire, but there are 5 fires of significance burning across Southern California. So 2 C-130s have been activated by the governor to assist with wildfires in Southern California. Let's go to Brandy now on the ground.
Yeah, Philip, we've been talking about those S2s all morning long and how critical they've been dropping all that fire retardant. We've been watching it from here in the backyard of this home, and so much of a difference we've seen just in the last maybe 10 minutes or so. You can see the white smoke in the distance. Maybe about 20 minutes ago, we saw a massive amount of red flames just race up that hillside in less than 60 seconds. In fact, on the edge, you see another round of flames, Brian. If you see that in the distance there next to that home they've been trying to protect. This is the issue, is we've seen 2 retardant drops, massive retardant drops by the planes, the S2s that have come in. And then all of a sudden you think, like Scott said, okay, everything's okay. There's white smoke. We're in the clear. And then you'll see the flames just flare up again on top of that hill. They've really been trying to protect that tree line up there. There are some homes on that end. Closer to us, thank goodness the fire has stopped. We saw a couple of rounds of flames racing this direction, racing up the hill, and they were able to take them out very quickly. And now we're seeing more white smoke in this direction, which is good news for everybody here off of Cassiano and Mulholland. But unfortunately, we've seen nonstop winds. The winds have not given up since we've been in this backyard for the last couple of hours. There are more choppers you see now surveying the area, trying to figure out, one's a survey, one appears to might be making a drop here of where to go next. There's another drop on those flames that we saw in the distance, flaring up again, and then it just did the choppers disappear into the smoke. The family here only was given, moments to evacuate. About maybe 10 minutes ago, we could hear officers moving through this neighborhood on loudspeakers and bullhorns saying, you need to evacuate now. But as of right now, it does appear this area is still in the clear under mandatory evacuations, but they've been able to stop the fire from moving north. It appears to keep moving towards the east and to the south, but every once in a while we see the fire flare up on this side and everyone starts freaking out a bit. So far the fire crews have been able to get a handle on this side of the fire, though. Back over to you.
All right. Hopefully they can stay safe. Brandy, thank you very much for that. Let's go back to Josh Haskell on the ground there. Josh, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Leslie, strange sight. I'm just going to step out and have you guys look. The 405 freeway is now completely shut down southbound and northbound between the 101 and the 10 freeway. No vehicles at all. We've seen a few emergency vehicles, some even going southbound on the northbound lanes. You can see that Moraga Drive exit shut down and Sunset here. So no vehicles at all. I know there was some talk of Carmageddon earlier. This is not caused by any freeway construction. This is caused because of the Skirball Fire. And I know this is going to let fire engines and LAPD personnel and all first responders get into the area easier, because as we were told earlier and as we've been showing you all morning, it was completely clogged here at Sunset and Church Lane. They even made the overpass their command post, so no traffic was getting through here. And now a lot of that traffic has gone away because the freeway behind me is shut down.
Okay, Josh, as I look at that, this is going to be an odd thing, but, you talk about how eerie that looks on the 405. It reminds me of September 11th and the airport, when they just shut down the airport and no one was traveling. It's almost as much a news story, the eerie nature of the freeway being completely closed like that. That freeway at 8:45 in the morning, empty.
You're totally right, Philip. It's a strange sight, and I know that it'll help get vehicles in and out, and it's what they had to do. We saw that fire burn right up to the freeway earlier, and now I know it's just helping them get vehicles in and out of this, as you heard, densely populated area with windy streets, narrow streets, and some ways where there's only one way in and out. So the best way for firefighters to get in and out is to have an open road like this.
Okay. All right,
You
Josh,
see an
thanks.
occasional car going by.
Yeah. You see one periodically get through, and sometimes they're emergency vehicles, sometimes they're escorts. They're allowing, maybe they're allowing a few people to get through. We're looking at a live picture on the right there of the fire. Scott Reif has gone to refuel, but we still have helicopter coverage above this. We want to try to get you around this accident if you cannot. I say accident. This closure, if possible. The Waze app can help you. You're looking at it right there. Look at the time estimates that you're talking about trying to get around this closure. You're talking about over an hour, hour and a half in some spots to an hour and 45 minutes to travel. The Waze app, always a good way to try to get around this fire. But in this circumstance, it is much like that Carmageddon weekend where they were closing the Sepulveda Pass to try to build bridges and expand the highway. But people, in a sense, just did not go there. Again, look at this map. This map on the left really shows you what we're talking about. Almost everyone in the Los Angeles area understands the importance of the 405. The trickle-down effect on the 101 and the 10 is going to be remarkable because people who aren't watching the news, they don't know what's going on, and they're going to get on the freeway, and they're going to try to travel their normal way. It's just not happening. 405 north and south is closed at the 10 transitions. 405 north and south also closed there as you try to get onto the 405 freeway. It's just not going to happen. And so now that's going to have a ripple effect to other commutes throughout the Los Angeles area. You just can't take the 405 away and expect things to just simply navigate around it. So expect that. Many people are just simply staying home. Also, you're probably having people stay home due to school closures. LAUSD closing a lot of schools. Many of the schools closed prior to this event. Santa Monica School District closed. Also, they are closed due to the fire. But there's just so much going on as a result of this, and we continue to follow it. The one good thing that we're seeing, as Scott has mentioned, a lot of white smoke coming now from the fire, the Skirball Fire. And the other element of this that's good is the wind element is really working in firefighters' favor.
It absolutely is, but it will not work in their favor for very long. We have Leslie Lopez. She has been tracking the Santa Ana winds as we've been dealing with them for the past few days here in Southern California. Leslie, when can we expect these winds to pick up?
You know, unfortunately, they are going to pick up today. Right now, though, we are in this lull, this period where we're seeing winds of about 10 to 15 miles per hour. So much calmer than where we were just 24 hours ago when at times we were hitting hurricane force gusts. Now, some of those sustained winds yesterday around 35 to 40. Today, again, 10 to 15. So much calmer wind conditions. But as we are noticing, I just want to show you that the timing of this is all going to change by the evening. We're going to head into another gusty pattern, very similar to what we saw yesterday morning. So right about 8 o'clock tonight is when the winds are going to begin to pick up. That'll pick up to about 22 miles per hour. Right about 11 p.m. tonight, it'll be more like 25 to 30 mile per hour winds. And some of those gusts, we are expecting to see them into the 40s and 50s. We could even see some isolated winds reach that hurricane force level. So it'll be very similar to what we saw yesterday morning. But again, that does not happen till later tonight. So firefighters are really working against the clock, trying to fight this fire and get it handled at least. And concerns are going to be that the next several hours ahead are going to remain at least vital to how this fire plays out. We're going to see for you today, this morning, calmer conditions, yes, than 24 hours ago. But again, late tonight, we're going to see some stronger winds pick up. I just want to talk about the humidity as well. We are looking at very dry conditions. So we are in this Santa Ana weather pattern. So that always brings in our humidity levels down to the single digits. Very much so today, we're seeing only 9% relative humidity through the Bel Air area. This is not a wind-driven fire like it was yesterday. This is more of a terrain-driven fire. And we are looking at a lot of medium to heavy brush in this area, so plenty of accelerants. And that's really what's driving this. In addition to the access, firefighters are having trouble with the small, narrow roads, very winding. So a lot of this is going to be air support. The good news is, in comparison to yesterday, we weren't allowed to put those fixed-wing aircraft in the air. Today we are, because the winds are so much of less of a concern than they were even just yesterday. Now, we are going to see, as we're noticing, I want to let you know of the direction all this is moving. The direction is coming from the northeast and moving its way to the southwest. So that's where the plume of smoke is headed. That's also where the flames would be headed. So if you are in that direction, firefighters may be asking you to evacuate already, may be asking you to evacuate shortly. But you'll also notice, just from a looking at this from this vantage point where we're sitting here, you can see that the plume of smoke, when we pull out of the shot, the plume of smoke goes up into the air. It's not lying flat like it did yesterday, so that's also an indication that the winds aren't nearly as strong. This is a Santa Ana weather pattern typical for the months of December, typical for January. We have hot Santa Anas in September and October. This is a cool Santa Ana, and cooler Santa Anas drive in stronger winds. So here we are with a typical pattern for this time of year. However, what is not typical is the rain that we have not received this season. And so the fuel moisture content is also making it very dry in addition to the low humidities. So that's also attributing to this making it a very difficult firefight. But seeing those fixed-wing aircraft dropping Phos-Chek fire retardant on some of these spots hopefully will help at least the direction in which this fire starts to move in. But again, it's moving from the northeast right out to the southwest.
All right, Leslie, thank you very much for that. We do know that underneath all of this smoke, we do have, as we see those choppers there, still doing their work, their wonderful work, trying to put out this fire and stop it from burning the homes. We do have homes burning, confirmed on Casiano Road, also on Moraga Road, and we have not yet seen under the smoke, gotten a look at what's exactly burning and the damage there, but we believe that there are homes burning on those two streets.
Right, we saw two. We watched
did see two.
Then there's an additional report of others. You know, one of the things we've also been talking about, commuting around town, getting to areas. I know the Disney Corporation has just sent out an email to all of their employees, so I'm certain that that's probably also happening with other jobs around town. I would check with your office just to let people know that Disney is suggesting to people, call your spirit and don't go to work. So this is affecting so many people in such a wide swath of Los Angeles, just the inability to get where you need to go. So the suggestion from our company and many others is to call ahead and find out if you can avoid going. Our thoughts right now are with the people who are not only fighting this fire, but the other 4 major fires around Southern California. We've had people call and ask, hey, what about the updates on these other fires? We are gathering that information. We will provide it to you. There is a significant firefight going on in Ventura County, the Rye Fire, also the Creek Fire here in L.A. The San Bernardino is dealing with a 100-acre fire. So we are watching as much of this as we can.
Right.
This is our focus at this moment because there are so many of these homes along the ridgeline here that are still in grave danger.
But we do know that the Thomas Fire in Ventura County, homes have burned in that fire. 150 at least homes have burned in that fire. And so resources are stretched very thin for firefighters, but we do know that C-130s are on their way here. We've got fire cranes here. We also have super scoopers at this location, and they have been battling this since about 5 o'clock this morning, I would say. A little before 5 o'clock is when this started. And it's moved up the ridge side. We believe that homes are burned. Of course, they have not done a damage assessment yet because they are still in the throes of fighting these flames and trying to stop it from peaking the hillside and going down into another ravine, which contains several other dozen homes or so.
At 8:54 in the morning, we want to let you know, if you're just now maybe tuning in, just joining us, we're preempting Good Morning America for this most recent fire, the Skirball Fire. And if you haven't been watching it, we can tell you that they've made some progress here on that ridgeline. I think, Leslie, you were alluding to that just now. But if you look at the camera shot on your right, even though they are zooming in now, I would pan to the left if we could. That particular ridgeline was really a focus for the air ops, and they have dropped a lot of Phos-Chek right on that line that you see. And we were really concerned that the fire had crept right up there and was going to leap over and start heading down that hill or down that crest. And they were able to, for now, halt the progress. And when you listen to Leslie Lopez and talk about the weather conditions, the indication is that's such a good thing because there's not the wind today to blow burning embers existing right now over the crest, over that ridge line and down that hill. That is where we're like crossing our fingers. I would venture to guess that firefighters really want to do, all fires want to knock all these fires out, but they want to get this out now, because if these conditions turn, this right here could get very bad. But they've made some progress right along that ridge line, and our hope is that they've been able to protect those homes that you can just see right there in the center of your screen.
Yeah, earlier we saw people evacuating this area. I mean, you have just seconds to get out to determine what you want to take from your home and to get out of the area. And of course, these mountain roads are very narrow. It's difficult to get into the area for firefighters. It's also difficult to get out. So the faster you can get out, the better. And we just continue to look at this wide shot of the thick smoke going into the air, but it is not gusting, and it looks like that fire has stopped at the ridge line. We continue to see air support aggressively battling this blaze. We also have fire crews on the ground there, and they are dousing flames. And
we also have a lot of crews from ABC7 down in that area. But here's another thing that we want to make sure that the viewer understands. We don't want our crews on the ground in the way of firefighters trying to navigate these very narrow streets. So not only is sometimes it difficult to get a cell phone signal out of this particular part of Los Angeles because of the topography there, the roads there are very difficult. And we have watched before we were pulled back from the air, we could see some of these roads, and people who live in that area simply parking on the street as they're allowed to do. Cars there made it difficult for fire trucks to navigate through that area. So we don't want to hinder any kind of operation by putting some of our big news vans back up in there. So that is a measure of one of the reasons why we too have pulled back some of our crews to a measure so that we can not allow, but we just don't want to be in the way. You can see now a lot of white smoke, and that is one of the good signs. Sadly, for some people, not only here, but in the Thomas Fire and other fires, there are homes that have been lost.
Yeah.
But the hope now is with that particular color of smoke that maybe some progress has been made.
Maybe we are turning the corner. We do have a Brandy hit down on the ground. She has been speaking with families who are threatened by this fire. Brandy, what can you tell us?
Some good news, hopefully, for the Waldman family and everyone else here in Cassiano and Mulholland, because when you look here, Leslie and Philip, we are just seeing a lot of light white smoke, where only about a half hour, 45 minutes ago, it was black in this area, and it appeared the fire might possibly make its way farther north and farther east up that line. I mean, when that ridge line there caught fire, it just took off, and now they've hit it with so many different airdrops, including fire retardant. The S2s have been out here just making drops left and right, and it appears as of now they've kind of stopped that fire from moving anywhere north and to the northeast, which is such good news when you look below and you see all of these homes, and then maybe about a quarter mile away where we are here at the Waldman's house, where this family, so lovely, family of 5, 3 children, their dog, they were just told to get out right away, and they listened to the evacuation orders, which we can't say enough, no matter which fire we're covering here, whether it's in Ventura or Castaic, Santa Clarita. The firefighters are telling us constantly, can you please go on the air and tell people when we give these orders, leave then, leave right then, because they're seeing so many families stay behind, and they're causing them to have to stop the firefighters what they're doing and make sure the families are safe. And so that takes them away from saving these homes and doing the job that they're trying to do. So the Waldmans and several other families in this neighborhood here on the northern side of this fire